Take Tintagel Castle. Most think it's just King Arthur's birthplace, but archaeological evidence reveals it was actually a thriving international trading port as far back as the 5th century.
That's fascinating. So the Arthurian connection came much later. What was it like before the legends took hold?
Well, the archaeological evidence shows it was this incredibly sophisticated settlement with Mediterranean trading connections. We're talking fine tableware from Turkey, olive oil from Greece, wine from North Africa, definitely not your typical Dark Ages outpost.
So how did it transform from trading hub to legendary castle?
You know, it's actually a brilliant example of medieval marketing. In the 12th century, this writer Geoffrey of Monmouth basically created the ultimate origin story, claiming it was where King Arthur was conceived. And get this, that story was so powerful that Richard, Earl of Cornwall, actually built his castle there because of the legend.
That's exactly like modern companies building their headquarters in places with symbolic meaning.
Speaking of impressive medieval buildings, the Château de Chambord in France takes architectural symbolism to another level. That lantern tower stretches 53 metres high, and every single element was designed to showcase power and innovation.
Oh right, isn't that the castle famous for its nighttime lantern tours?
Exactly. And those tours really show how these places keep finding new ways to connect with visitors. Like walking through those massive halls at night, lantern in hand, you're literally seeing the castle the way medieval people would have experienced it.
Well, that must create such a different atmosphere than daytime tours.
Absolutely incredible. The flickering light reveals all these architectural details you'd miss in daylight, and it really makes you think about how these spaces were actually used, not just as defensive structures, but as stages for power and storytelling.
You know, it's interesting how differently the British and French approach their historical sites.
Right? The British totally lean into the mystical aspects, like Tintagel's Arthurian connections, while the French focus more on the architectural brilliance, like those incredible Renaissance features at Chambord.
Though both approaches seem to work for keeping history relevant to modern visitors.
And that's what fascinates me about these places. They're not frozen in time. Each generation adds new layers of meaning. Like those Roman traders at Tintagel could never have imagined their port becoming Britain's most famous legendary castle.
So what do you think these places tell us about our relationship with history?
Well, I think they show how we're constantly reinterpreting our past to make sense of our present. Whether it's through ghost stories at Tintagel or symbolic architecture at Chambord, we're always finding new ways to connect with these ancient stones.
That's quite profound. These places are really living monuments that keep evolving with us.
Exactly. And, you know, what's really interesting? The way these interpretations affect modern architecture. Like, when architects today design buildings meant to last centuries, they're often thinking about how future generations might reinterpret their work.
Though I doubt many modern buildings will inspire the same kind of legendary status.
Maybe not, but the stories we tell about places, those can last forever. And that's really the magic of sites like Tintagel and Chambord. They're not just monuments in stone, they're repositories of human imagination and our endless desire to connect with our past while dreaming about our future. Take the Church of Santo Estevão in Galicia. Since 2007, the regional government has been using cutting-edge preservation techniques that are now being adapted for sites like the Ganesh Pole at Amer in Rajasthan. The way they're documenting and preserving these structures is revolutionizing how we think about cultural heritage.
That makes me wonder about the challenges they face in such different climates and cultures.
You know what's fascinating? In Vigo, which has about 200,000 residents, they're dealing with Atlantic moisture and industrial pollution, while at Amer it's extreme heat and massive tourist footfall. But here's the kicker, they're using similar core preservation principles, just adapted for their specific contexts.
So how do these sites manage to balance modern development with historical preservation?
That's actually one of the most innovative aspects. Take Vigo, for example. They've managed to maintain their status as a major industrial port while preserving their historical heritage along the Portuguese coastal way. They've essentially turned their industrial heritage into part of their cultural narrative.
That's really clever, making their modern identity work with their historical one rather than against it.
Exactly. And what's really exciting is how these preservation techniques are evolving. The World Monuments Fund has been implementing this incredible documentation system that combines traditional knowledge with modern technology. They're using 3D scanning at Amer while still employing local artisans who understand centuries-old construction techniques.
The way these organisations are sharing knowledge across continents is pretty remarkable.
Oh, you haven't heard the best part they've discovered, that some traditional building methods, like the lime mortars used in Galician churches, are actually more effective for long-term preservation than modern materials. It's completely changing our understanding of historical construction techniques.
That must be creating some interesting opportunities for local craftspeople.
Absolutely right. In both Galicia and Rajasthan, they're creating these knowledge transfer programs where traditional artisans work alongside conservation experts. It's not just preserving buildings, it's preserving entire craft traditions that might otherwise be lost.
Looking ahead, what do you think are the biggest challenges these preservation efforts face?
Well, climate change is the elephant in the room. Both regions are seeing increased weather-related stress on their structures. But there's also this fascinating challenge of digital preservation. They're now creating detailed 3D scans of these sites, essentially creating digital twins that could help future restoration efforts.
That's amazing how technology is becoming such a crucial part of preservation.
And here's what really gets me excited. These efforts are creating this global network of preservation expertise. The challenges faced at Santo Estevão are helping inform preservation strategies at Amer Fort and vice versa. It's this beautiful example of how cultural heritage preservation is becoming this worldwide collaborative effort.